The footy is finally back. We dissect all the big talking points out of the weekend's trials. His name has been on everyone's lips for the past 6 months, but is team sensation Joseph Suaalii ready for the NRL? The Dragons get a rude shock in the Charity Shield. Is there cause for concern for the year ahead? And the Storm suffer a blow with Harry Grant set to miss the season opener. But will there be better news about Craig Bellamy's coaching future with the Premiers? Yes, hello and welcome to a brand new year of Inside the NRL. I'm Zach Bailey. It's great to have you joining us for the 4th year of this show. I'm new in the hot seat, but I'm lucky enough to be joined by two of the sharpest minds in Rugby League. 2010 Premiership winner with the Dragons, Jamie Suaalii.
Hey,
great to have you back.
Thanks, mate. Looking forward to a big year.
And Michael Chammas, Chief Writer for the Sydney Morning Herald and, of course, the Nine Network.
Thank you, Zachary. Lovely introduction.
Off-season, 2 kids, no footy. Have you missed it?
Yeah, I tried to sit down and watch the footy Saturday night. We moved house, but I have missed it. It was nice to see some trials over the weekend. I know we're going to dissect them now, but the footy's just around the corner. Really excited for that first game in a couple of weeks. And
Michael, you're no doubt looking forward to talking about the Dragons.
Yeah, no, Jamie's obviously worked really hard with them in the off-season. A big signing, Jamie Suaalii, to that coaching staff over the break. But no, in all seriousness, there are causes for concern there. We'll get into that a little bit later, but it'll be interesting to see how Suaalii's found it back 10 years on from when he last was there.
All right, we've got to get off to a slow start here. We can't go all one-outs early on. Now, this is our trial match, essentially, for season 2021. On Saturday, it was great to see Joseph Suaalii in his senior debut for the Bears in their trial against the Raiders. He's only 17. He's in the papers again this week. Should he or shouldn't he be allowed to play in the NRL before his 18th birthday on August 1? Jamie Suaalii, from what we already knew, from what you saw from the highlights on the weekend, is he ready to take on the NRL?
I wish I looked like that at 17. He's definitely ready. Whether he will play or not is going to be the interesting thing. I think that you see some of these highlights, his body shape is ready to go. Physically, he'd be able to handle it. I know that mentally, the NRL is a bit of a toll, a bit of a roller coaster at times if you're not playing well, but I honestly don't know whether he'll get a lot of footy this year. I think that they're just trying to dot their I's and cross their T's in preparation that they may need to use him throughout the year because they had some injuries last year, the Roosters.
So just given that, the likes of James Tedesco, Joey Manu, the two Morris brothers, Tupou, where does he fit in the back line? Why do you think the Roosters are pushing so hard to get an exemption now?
I think they're just trying to make prepared that if something happens in the first month of the season that they're able to go to this kid and be prepared that he's ready to play in the NRL.
Yeah, if Josh Morris does a hamstring in the next week before round 1, then Suaalii's next came off the rank. He's not knocking one of those guys off. From my understanding, Joseph Suaalii won't be starting the year in that starting side for the Roosters. So the club's just making sure that if there is every possibility someone gets an injury, he's ready to go. So they don't want to be putting paperwork in at the 11th hour hoping for the best. And look, we saw on the weekend, there's enough there to suggest that he's going to be something special. He probably needs to learn how to draw and pass, because if he butchered that try, he would have been on the blooper reel for years to come. But look, he's something special. The Roosters know how to nurse him.
There's one thing to remember too. For every NRL fan out there, if he wasn't at the Roosters, we would be pushing for this kid to be playing. You know, everyone doesn't want to see the Roosters win. They don't want to see them be successful. They buy their talent. They go out and do all this kind of stuff. This kid would be playing if it was at another club because everyone would want that to happen. So I think if you're old enough, certainly that body shape is ready, and special exemption needs to be put forward if he's ready to play in the Roosters' eyes. This isn't a first-year coach in Trent Robinson getting a kid ready to play NRL. This is a guy who's won 3 premierships and been in the NRL and brought some young guys through. So I think you sit down and then work it all out together.
The current NRL rules state that you can't play in the NRL until you're 18 years of age. As I mentioned off the top, August 1 is his 18th birthday. Michael, where are we at from the NRL's perspective as to whether they will allow this exemption through?
Well, the application was put forward by the Roosters last month. They wanted Joseph Suaalii to be ready to play in round 1. The NRL went back and said, we need some more information in regards to your plans with mental wellbeing, how you plan to nurse him through his first season. Now, last Friday, the Roosters went back to the NRL with a submission and provided what was required. The NRL's now asked the Roosters to go back and undergo some specific testing to get some answers before they make that decision. Now, I think they'll get the answer there after the Roosters. I think that Peter V'landys, let's be fair to him, he made the decision when he was still looking like he was going to play at South Sydney. V'landys made the decision to say, we'll look at the exemption, 12 months or 6 months ago, and when the threat of rugby union was there. So it's going to be hard for him to go back on his word. But from my understanding, the Roosters have put a pretty compelling application together, and Peter Verleen and the NRL Commission look like they're going to look favourably upon it. But who knows? We'll find out soon.
So physically ready, yeah, we saw in those highlights. You can match it against the men, but mentally, so you've been in the game for a long time. You played alongside youngsters coming through. You were a youngster once. Are players ready in this highly professional modern era, ready to play at 17?
I played in Nathan Cleary's debut game, which was my last game, and the professionalism around him getting ready for that game, you knew that he was going to be something special. And in a day and age where there's social media and all that kind of stuff, and they're taking the proper precautions, this isn't a kid that they've just brought up from the bush and said, geez, he's been good in the bush, we're going to throw him in. He's been touted as superstar for the last couple of years. The Roosters are doing everything in their power to prepare him for first grade. And if you come in and you do have a bad game or mentally struggle like that, like I said, they've gone through everything that they need to go through to get this kid prepared. And it's a different age now. We're seeing kids be more bigger, faster, stronger than ever before. And this is Joseph Suaalii's time.
See how he touched on the point earlier about the Roosters, and everyone loves to hate the Roosters. That's going to be a serious issue for Suaalii, because unlike Nathan Cleary when he came in, unlike a lot of kids that come into 17 who have the general support of the public, the tall poppy syndrome, everyone's going to be like, we want to see this kid fail because the Roosters have got him. It's reality of the situation. He's going to have to deal with that, because it's not fair on Joseph Suaalii, the fact that he's going to be criticised and scrutinised because of the team he supports. So I hope it just doesn't get carried away with some of the fans, because at the end of the day, he's 17.
Don't worry about the fans, mate.
There's already been... He hasn't played an
There's
NRL game. There's so much talk about how good he's going to be, how good he already is.
Yeah.
Do we all need to pump the brakes and go, hang on a minute, this kid is still 17, we all have a role to play and a responsibility to play to not talk him up? Or is it the age that we live in of Twitter, Instagram,
But we've
Facebook,
been doing it for years.
media?
We've been doing it for years. Luke Brooks was the next Andrew Johns. You know, we always do it to our young kids. I just want to see Joseph Suaalii play. And as for the fans, fans are going to find a way to bag you. Trust me, I've been there. They're going to find a way to pick you apart even when you have a good game. So I just think, just let him play. Enjoy those highlights. Go to YouTube and watch. You know, we want the next crop coming through wanting to be the next Joseph Suaalii, not put all the pressures on him and want him to be someone else.
Okay, Suaalii was just one of many NRL players in action across the trials over the weekend. Let's remind you all of the results from all 16 NRL teams. The action kicked off with the Storm beating the Knights by 20. The Roosters got the wood over the Raiders on Saturday afternoon. The Titans and Warriors played out a 12-all draw, while Trent Barrett's Bulldogs fought back to edge out the Sharks. The Panthers were too strong for the Eels in the Battle of the West, as the Cowboys came from behind to beat the Broncos in Brisbane. And of course, Michael Maguire's team there on Sunday, the result, a big win over Manly. Suaalii, the result I didn't touch on there, 48-16 loss for the Dragons in the Charity Shield. You joined the club this year. You returned to the club that you won a premiership with back in 2010 as a kicking coach. Great relationship with Anthony Griffin, worked closely with the players. Did that result surprise you?
It did a little bit, but it also didn't surprise me the fact that nothing's changed for the first month, getting the first month of the season right in terms of ball control and being able to hold onto the ball. Souths were fantastic on the weekend. I thought that, as a defensive unit, we didn't defend how we'd been practicing, and I think Anthony probably would have been a little bit disappointed in that. But South Sydney are very, very slick, and their premiership window's open. Their culture has been building for the last couple of years, and Anthony Griffin's had 4 months there to get it to train. And I think that sometimes when you train that long and you're excited about trying to impress the new coach, maybe you try a little bit too hard. We've seen that in the trials, that we've tried a little bit too hard and things haven't gone right for us. But there's still some positives out of that game on the weekend.
Michael, Suaalii just mentioned the opening month. It's an important opening month for the Dragons. The Sharks, Cowboys, Seagulls and Knights, their first 4 matches. How important is it for them to get off to a good start in those 4 matches to ensure the pressure isn't on hook from day one?
Yeah, well, it's a relatively simple draw, to be honest with you, as well, compared to some of the teams. The Dragons are pretty happy with that start to the year, and they need to start well. And I know Suaalii's got a role there with the club, and the weekend was... Look, I get it. It's a trial, and you're going to tell me it's a trial. You don't get overexcited with trials results, but there are concerns there with what was dished out. Because, mate, at one point, I thought Anthony Griffin was going to be the first coach sacked in a trial game, the way they were going to half. If Wayne Bennett didn't take his players off at half-time, that could have got seriously ugly. Now, I know it means nothing and there's no competition points, But you're talking about a team under enormous pressure. I'll flip it the other way. Look at the West Tigers. They go into round one, confidence, sky high, they can knock off the Raiders. The Dragons, and they'll be self-doubting that football team, start to think, geez, are we the same old mob that we were last year? Because at the end of the day, the fans are looking at it thinking, where's the improvement coming from? Because you didn't see any. I stand corrected if they win round one, I'll stand corrected, but there's cause for concern. I think that's fair.
We need to remember it is a trial. And like I said, sometimes you go out too excited in a trial match. And I thought I saw that on the weekend. You look at Ben Hunt's running game on the weekend, I thought it was pretty good. Sure, there was some stuff there that we'd love to be able to take back and work on, but at the end of the day, it's a trial. They're getting themselves ready for in 2 weeks' time. I've played in many trial matches where you just wanting to get to the start of the season. And I think that new coach, give it some time. It's easy for me to sit here. I've got to be one-sided, but as Dragons fans, I get how passionate you are, right? But as a culture, we're only 4 months into the Anthony Griffin reign. Yeah. You've got to give it time. You can't... This culture doesn't just build itself overnight. The Souths, Melbourne, Roosters, they've been building for a long time.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything for the results going forward for round one. It won't...
OK, so Manly get beat. Manly got 50 points put on it.
Manly had no players.
Where's Manly's...
Manly had no...
Doesn't matter, though.
No Cherry Evans, no Kieran Foran, no Jake Trbojevic, no Tom Trbojevic, no Kate Cast, no Lachlan Croker. Like, there were no one was playing.
OK. So does it matter in 2 weeks' time?
No, it doesn't. All I'm saying to you, what it does do is it increases the self-doubt in players, and you may not think that's the case, but there'll be players there who have the scars of yesteryear still lingering. And what it does is also increase pressure because the fans are watching thinking, uh-oh, here we go again. It's, was it Paul McGregor's fault? Was it the players' fault? Just everything just increases because of that performance.
All right, bring on round one, the local derby between the Dragons and the Sharks, and of course round two between Chammas and Suaalii. The Bulldogs fought back to beat the Sharks. Of course, plenty of hype around them next year. New coach, new recruits. They've got Josh Adokar on the way, Matt Burton on the way, a couple of others. But is there reason to believe Chammas in season 2021?
I think there's some good signs. I think Canterbury are going to be competitive this year. They're going to be challenging for a top 8 position. In round 20, they may fall away, but they won't be out of contention by round 10 as they have been in previous years. Now, the criticism of Canterbury over the years is that they had nothing in attack. That won't be the case this year with Trent Barrett as coach. They will be competitive as they have been, and they'll show more in attack. I have no doubt. I think they're a year away from playing finals football. But doesn't mean they won't be competing come round 20. They'll be thereabouts and probably just miss out.
Do you agree, Sal? Will they still be in the race come round 20?
I haven't got them in my 8. I think that last year we saw them that they weren't the worst team throughout the year. They tried really, really hard. Their attack needed some work on, and that looks like what they've done with Trent Barrett is bring a very, very smart mind into their team. For me, when new toys come to the club, like you've got a new 7, you've got a new 1, Hopewadi shifted back to the centres. Their back line looks a lot more balanced now, but what does that look like in a month's time when you're under the pump? Because the Bulldogs the last 5 years, 3 of the last 5 years, they've finished the season really, really strong. And we've talked about next year, and we always seem to be talking about next year with the Bulldogs. Then they come out the first 2 rounds, stink it up, and everyone's going, the Bulldogs again. The same questions, potentially, what you're asking about the Dragons. But I'll be judging the Bulldogs a month in because Kyle Flanagan, what does that look like when you're up against some of the powerhouses in the competition, for 80 minutes, week after week? But great, I'm very happy for Kyle to be at the Bulldogs this year.
All right, it's time to pass our judgment on the Broncos. Kevin Walters' reign at Red Hill looked like it would be getting off to a good start. They led 18-6 over the Cowboys at half-time, then conceded 34 unanswered points. Michael, if you're Kevy, are you encouraged by the opening 40, or are you concerned about the way your team fell away in the second half?
Yeah, look, a bit of both. I think with Brisbane, a lot of the teams over the weekend took their best players off in the second half. So the second half results you probably can't look too much into, unlike the Dragons' first half. I think that was a bit different. But I think with the Broncos, though, that was the Achilles heel last year after half-time, Suaalii. That they really struggled in the second half. And if that's anything to go by, perhaps it might be a concern for Kevy Walters this year.
From 49th minute to the 58th, they were the worst team, not only in the NRL last year, but on history. Like, they were diabolical in the second half. Jake Turpin back will be a fantastic addition. I think that he'll settle down the ruck for them. What that looks like, it's a young team. What it looks like a month in. The concerning thing is you talk about trial form and nothing changed from last year. It was just like a regular season game where they started, they looked like they were in the game at half time. I know their best players may have come off, but the second half they concede points, and it's a culture thing. It takes time with new coaches. It's not you don't just pick your best 17 and go, righto guys, you guys believe in this culture and what it takes to play first grade in 80 minutes. It's got to be a whole squad thing, and it's going to take time for Kevy, much like it will for Anthony.
But they conceded 3 tries in 9 minutes on the weekend, and as you said, it was a trend of last year. Kevy's had this squad since November 1. He went in there early. He was meant to coach Origin, but he was in there early. How worrying is it that they haven't fixed that issue?
Very worrying, especially against the Cowboys, who aren't a good attacking team. They've changed some things under Todd Payten, but then they weren't a good attacking team last year, so that'll be concerning going into round 1. But again, it takes time. This is why you have new coaches every year, because the coach last year couldn't get the job done. So it's going to take time for them to put their stamp on what their team looks like. Sometimes you reap the rewards like we did in 2009 straight away under Wayne Bennett. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer.
Yeah, but what are the expectations on Brisbane? That's different. The Dragons in 2009 were expected to go well.
Did Wayne come to the club with that squad in 2008 to 2009? We expected to finish minor premiers?
No, but
right.
You overachieved. But you expected to play finals football. Are you expecting Brisbane to get much higher than they were last year?
Not on my ladder.
No, me either. That's what I'm saying. So I think.
But
Brisbane,
you'd be expecting Kevy to have a stamp on the team, like that just looks like last year. Yeah, that to me looks exactly like last year.
All right, the scoreline says they won by 10, but Penrith were clinical in their win over the Eels out at Panthers Stadium. The NRL introduced a whole heap of rule changes ahead of this year, Michael. The aim, speed up the game, more ball in play. You were out there, I was out there. Did you notice the difference immediately?
Look, the aim of the rule changes is to increase entertainment, right? The first half probably wasn't the most entertaining game, but they were out on their feet, both players, and we spoke to Brad Arthur. Both teams, sorry. Brad Arthur, after the game, said Clint Gutherson was running 120 metres per minute in that first 20 minutes. Now, to give you a gauge of what average is, about 85 to 95 metres is what they train high intensity at club level. So Clint Gutherson was getting through it in that first 20 minutes, and 32 minutes of ball in play. That's more than 5 minutes more than the average half last year. So the rule changes are having the desired effect, and the coaches thought that perhaps the game wasn't entertaining because the players were too tired. Now that will improve over the course of the year. Fitness levels will improve, but it wasn't a spectacle on Saturday night. The tries came from either errors or individual brilliance.
All right, that was the perspective from the sideline, but here is Isaiah Yeo, the Panthers co-captain, who was part of that match.
Yeah, the game is getting faster, and there's a lot more ball in play, which is exciting for the fans. It obviously makes the players a touch more tired, but it seems to open it up a little bit. Well, definitely more fatigue. Not sure about injuries and all that sort of stuff, but there's going to be definitely more fatigue, and that's going to take a bit of getting used to, I think, for the players, which is normal for any rule changes, any sort of up in speed and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, look, it's exciting for the fans, and obviously they're a big part of this game. So I'd imagine there'll be a few more tries and a bit more open play, but yeah, very fast.
So, Suaalii, my question to you is, will it help or hinder the Panthers after their runner-up finish last year?
Yeah, there's some question marks around the Panthers. I think that when you make a grand final and you lose the way that they did, like they had everything go right for them last year. 17 wins, no injuries. Appy Coruscant carried a little bit of a shoulder injury, but they had their best 17 pretty much the whole year. Didn't get the job done. The emotion bucket, how many times do you keep going back into it like the Raiders did, and then you get an injury or you fall short? So they haven't had any adversity, so I'll be interested to see how they go with the adversity. With the rule changes, the 6 again rule, I don't want to see a 6 again-a-thon to start the year to try and stamp your authority if you're a referee. I think there's, having watched the trials and especially watched the Dragons and Parramatta one closely, it was so lopsided. If the game's going to be fast, it has to be fast for both sides. You can't just have one team so far on top that it's so fast for them and they're getting 6 again, 6 again, 6 again. So I worry about that. But again, the Penrith Panthers, they'll be up there. Their premiership's windows wide open.
I'll tell you one thing about Penrith, and people at the club are aware of this. Last year, everything went, as you said, went their way, but the COVID bubble helped them. They were all young kids, they were all best mates, and they all stuck together, and that actually brought the best out of them. This year, kids have turned into superstars with lots of money, and the world has changed. We're going back to almost back to where we were, and the temptations are back there now. We're talking about lots and lots of money for blokes who were no names 12 months ago, who are now household names in Sydney. So it's going to be the temptations for the players. How much do they really want it? Because the party life and the good life they're going to live with what they're going to earn over the next part of their lives, it's going to be hard to resist. It's going to come back to how much they want it.
And now it's a second-year syndrome with a lot of the.
They've got
those
Hayden
guys.
Knowles, they've got Ivan Cleary. They're out there doing their mindfulness.
We're not
training,
questioning
so
that, but it's last year went perfectly for them.
Yeah.
You need
They
a
had
lot of
every
luck.
player in their roster available on grand final day.
You need
Almost unheard
a
of.
lot of luck to win a premiership to get through all the way, and they had that luck and didn't get it done.
All right. Thankfully, there weren't many injuries out of the weekend's trials, but here's this week's casualty ward update. The key injuries came out of Melbourne. Harry Grant, he'll be sidelined for their season opener. Of course, suffering a high-grade medial ligament strain, which means he'll miss matches against Souths, the Eels and Penrith, so he's looking at a round 4 return. Meanwhile, Manly's Cade Cuss suffered a suspected broken thumb during their trial loss. Cuss is expected to miss the opening rounds, with coach Des Hasler hoping Lachlan Croker overcomes a slight hamstring concern to play at hooker in round 1. Suaalii, with Grant missing for the opening 3 weeks, is this Brandon Smith's chance to stake his claim to be the number 9 for the rest of the year?
Can't believe
We've
got the New Zealand hooker, New Zealand
You hate
Test
this.
hooker.
I know you really hate
Mate,
this.
I thought he was the number 1 choice. Harry Grant, no disrespect to Harry Grant, love watching him play. What he did in Origin Game 3 will haunt me forever as a New South Wales fan. But you've got the New Zealand international hooker at your team who's so good that he can play anywhere in the team. I thought he should have started at 9 for Melbourne Storm.
But you said it just then. He's so good, he can play anywhere in the team.
And he will do that, but this will be his last
the
year
reality
at
of the
Melbourne.
situation.
He will do that because he's a great team guy and he looks like he'll play anywhere just to be in the team. But this will be his last year at Melbourne.
Yeah, we'll be at a Queensland club, I think, next year.
There you go.
So Harry Grant comes straight back into the number 9 in round 4?
I would have Smith.
Depends how good Brandon Smith goes in the Storm.
He's
Right.
going all right. He's playing number 9 for New Zealand.
There's been plenty of retention and recruitment over the off-season since we all last sat here, and it never seems to stop in the NRL. Michael, the big question, is Matt Burton going to be a Panther or a Bulldog by round 1?
Well, they'll ask the question, Canterbury, maybe another 5 times before we get to the June 30 deadline. Now, look, I don't know if people are aware of the rules. There's slight changes in the rules now. There's more chance of Matt Burton leaving after round 1 than there was in the pre-season because Matt Burton, if the Panthers let go of Matt Burton after round 1, they do not have to replace him in their top 30 squad. And that's huge when it comes to the salary cap, especially for a club that's quite restricted in what they can do with the cap. So the reality of the situation is it benefits Penrith far more after round 1 than it did 4 weeks ago when Canterbury came knocking, or 8 weeks ago when they first started coming knocking. So they'll ask the question. I don't think we'll have an answer till June 30. It'll be knock back until they're left with no choice.
I hope we see him play this year. He's so good. He's so good to watch. I mean, I know that Penrith are trying to win a premiership and they're in there, but they've got Jerome Luai, and to waste this kid sitting on the sideline another year.
Or is he sideline? Is he your 14 or is Tyrone May your 14?
Tyrone May's my 14, but this is if you're going anyway. Yeah.
If you're
know.
Penrith and you've got an unhappy player at the club, and his manager's spoken openly about, I want to get him out, he wants to get out, he wants to go to the Dogs. Is it not happier for all parties just to let him go?
It was happy for me. I got wrist-holed 3 times.
No, but the
Well,
thing
you can
is,
speak to it.
Yeah, mate, get out of there.
No, it's not fair. And look, would Matt Burton want to go if he was going
Okay,
to
but
earn...
what creates this situation is being allowed to sign a contract for another club a year out.
And also being able, if he leaves, to go get a lot more money at Canterbury than he does at Penrith.
But what's the
this year.
difference when a player gets sacked from one club and then goes and signs another deal somewhere else, or
look,
wants out and then gets more money somewhere else?
Yeah, they shouldn't be able to get more money else. That's what I'm trying to say. But the reality of the situation is, if Penrith lose Luai or Cleary to injury, season over. A serious injury to one of those two, the premiership's gone. And I don't think they can risk letting Matt Burton go if it means their season's over with one injury.
All right, let's race through these next couple. Mitchell Pearce, what's the latest with his new deal with the Knights?
Yeah, he's been speaking to the Knights for a few weeks now. There's probably going to be a 1-year deal signed with Mitchell Pearce staying on at the club's been there now 4 years after his stint with the Roosters. So expect Mitchell to stay on probably at about $400,000 or $500,000 pay cut as well. Look, he's one of the highest paid players in the game already. So he's in the twilight of his career. Mitchell plays 300 games this year. He'll stay at the Knights for at least one more.
Okay, there are a few playmakers off contract at the moment, but the Eels are throwing all their eggs in the basket of Mitch Moses. They want him to stay for the long term.
Yeah, the Mitch Moses situation, he's got an option in his favour to play next year at the Eels. Now, he hasn't triggered that option, but Parramatta have come to the table and said, We believe in you. We want you as our long-term 7, and they've offered another extension to Mitchell Moses to at least 2023. So he hasn't accepted that deal. They're still negotiating at the moment, but Parramatta and Mitchell are on the same page. They want him there at least for another 2 seasons after this year. So I think Mitchell will stay. I don't know if he'll get a lot more money elsewhere at the moment with the salary cap going down and a number of halves off contract.
Do you have him in the top 4 this year?
Eels?
Yeah.
There or thereabouts, 4 or 5, I think.
I've got him at 6. I worried about that combination with Gutherson and Moses last year when they came back. It just didn't look like the team. When Moses was out, Gutherson was cooking. When it comes back, Dylan Brown, maybe it was just injury and they just couldn't get it right. But, yeah, I want to see that combination a little bit more. But, great. Good luck to him. Hopefully he signs for 5 more years.
All right, that's the signing news or potential signing news. It's now time for Hit or Miss. All right. Chamis, Rabbitohs premiership talk is premature.
I'm going to say miss. I think it's... I don't think it is premature, to be honest with you. They've been there or thereabouts for a number of years. They've played in maybe 3 prelims in a row now, 2 under Wayne Bennett, 1 under Anthony Seibold. They probably, with the Roosters, the best team on paper. So how is this talk premature? They couldn't get any closer to a grand final than what they've done the last 3 years, and they've got a better roster than they did back then. So it's grand final or bust, Wayne, in your final year. Good luck. They may not win it, but I think a failure to reach a grand final is a failure for Wayne Bennett.
Is that your concern, Suaalii?
My concern is the last 3 years, the prelim, the final, not being able to work that out on the run, because they came into that prelim final against Penrith as the hottest team that we'd seen probably since the Cowboys when they finished 8th. So they just haven't been able to get it done, and having watched it closely, and Damien Cook in those big games, the next level. How quickly can they work it out if things aren't going their way to get past that hump? Because he's one of my favourite players to watch, but in the prelim final, he would tell you himself, they just haven't been able to work out what has needed to get them across the line into a grand final. So the premiership window's wide open. They'll probably start favourites, but there's that question mark there of how do you get over the hump? Three prelim finals in a row.
Doing it for Wayne. Fairy tale send-off.
Well, what have you been doing the last 2 years? You haven't been doing it for Wayne.
No,
don't worry about doing it for...
year.
Listen, don't worry about doing it for Wayne. Do it for yourself.
Okay. The West Tigers have finally got their recruitment right. Suaalii, I'll go to you.
Miss, there's still some question marks here. Dane Laurie, obviously a huge pickup. Penrith let him go, even though they probably, Dylan Edwards gets hurt.
And Charlie Staines is their backup fullback.
Yeah, so anyway, Dewey, Madden, Brooks, Little... There's still some question marks over whether Adam Dewey will work at 5'8", long term. Jock Madden was fantastic on the weekend. He's had some really big, superstar labels put on him. When Benji was at the club and having watched him play, he's pretty good, but still learning. And Jacob Little just needs to stay injury-free. So I think there's teams in the NRL. The premiership window's open for those top teams. They don't have many questions about them. The Tigers still got lots of questions.
So that's a miss. They haven't got it right.
Did you hear the question?
Yeah.
Well, you spoke about Jacob Little, Adam Dewey, Luke Brooks. It's about recruitment.
Yeah. I don't think they got themselves a 5'8".
Okay. Well,
that's who they haven't got to replace.
I think the recruitment's actually really good. They made the mistake 4 years ago of paying overs for blokes towards the end of their career, and they made a huge mistake, and they'll be still paying the price for it, and they're not going to be in the clear till next year. They've gone the opposite way this year, completely opposite of Canterbury. Instead of investing all their money in big-name players, your Nick Kotrick, your Josh Addo-Cars, they've gone and bought the best young kids in the game. Dane Laurie, he plays like Ben Barber. He's going to be something special. The kid from Parramatta, Stefano, the young prop at Parramatta, he's gone to the Tigers this year. Very good play, played well yesterday. James Roberts for 120 grand, no brainer. If it doesn't work, see you later, James Roberts. Who else they got? The AJ Kapoor, who they got last year from the Roosters on the wing. He looks good. To me, even Sean Bloor, I know he's injured, but the guys that they've spent, if it doesn't work, all their eggs are not in one basket. They can still go and sign. They've got plenty of money.
Would they have been a better side yesterday if Benji Marshall was still at the club?
No, I think they had to cut ties with Ben. And last year I was very, very critical of Michael Maguire's dropping of Benji because I thought that was the wrong decision at the time. It cost them their season. But the time to move on was last year. And I think that you'll find Adam Dewey at 6, Dane Laurie at 1 or Moses Mbye at 1, depending on what happens.
But see, I'm confused by that because if Adam Dewey was your best 6 and Moses Mbye was going to play 1 before you got Laurie, why didn't you just do that last year?
Because, they had Benji at 6 last year.
It's like when Milford, went to fullback and that was his best position.
They had Benji at 6 last year. Look, you don't... the question
But they dropped Benji.
They dropped Benji, and they should not have dropped Benji. But the question was recruitment. The Tigers there have done a fantastic job. Their recruitment over the last 4 years has been diabolical. Adik Hardigan and Michael Maguire, thumbs up. We saw it on the weekend.
Hit from Michael. All right, the last one. Will Craig Bellamy be coaching the Storm in season 2022? Yes?
No.
So it's a miss. He won't.
Miss for me. Yeah, I think he'll just, without Smith, this is like Belichick and Tom Brady. Yeah, there might be a chance here. We don't know if Tom Brady, a.k.a. Cameron Smith's going to come back yet. It might be a chance for Craig Bellamy to finish on top by himself. If he gets his team into a top 4 again, it's unbelievable.
I would have said miss a month ago, but from what I gather, there's a little glimmer of hope from the Storm that they're convincing Craig Bellamy to go one more year. Who knows? We're only speculating because Craig Bellamy keeps his cards so close to his chest, but hearing whispers that there's a little bit of confidence about Bellamy, maybe one more year.
Why the change?
Perhaps one more year.
Is he enjoying it more than not what he did before? He had fantastic players, but we've seen a different side to Craig Bellamy in the bubble this year, been more open, been more on social media, like more of him being vulnerable without the camera, you know what I mean? Like, we see him in the coach's box and that's all we saw him. Now we see him dressing up at training and changing a tyre and all that kind of stuff. Is he enjoying it more? Is that what's changed his mind? He's adapted with the times of the younger
Maybe
guys.
Brandon Smith's rubbed off and Cam Munster rubbed up.
I'd love to hear those convos between Smith, Munster and
Bellamy together.
Bellamy.
Jeez. All right. From Bellamy to Champ or Chump. And of course, this was my favourite segment last year as a viewer. So I'm going to start with my absolute champ at the moment in the NRL, and it's Angus Crichton. And this is why. I'm loving his new look.
He's off Shrek. Looks like the Lord Farquaad.
I'm not a Shrek man, so I don't have kids.
With the goatee and stuff like that.
But I love...
With about 2 metres extra of height, yes.
I'll tell you what, he finished the game last year as probably the premium back
Look at
rower.
those two. Seriously, they could star in a movie as,
They're back
a couple of cops.
Roosters. They'll make the grand
Forget
final
about
this
Victor
year.
Radley.
Do you agree? Do you agree with me that that's a champ look, not a chump look?
Oh,
It's better than the haircut he had last year, yeah.
What was his
The mullets
shot
are
last
back.
year?
Didn't he have a mullet last year?
That was last year.
Yeah.
Come on. All right, the first ever Fiji team, the Kaivati Silktails, quarantined for 2 weeks ahead of their first season in the Ron Massey Cup. And this is how they thanked their hotel staff.
That's so special.
Champs all the way.
100%.
Yeah.
I've got a champ for the first show. It's our little mate here, Zach Bailey.
Yes.
Congratulations. You won the best sports coverage for individual video this year, or last year,
I was the only man.
Well, we've actually got the trophy here.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. It's been delivered in.
This will be good.
We've got the pack on here. Here we go.
Ah, stitch up on
have we
day
got?
one. This will be good. Oh, this is an
It's a golden mic and a golden keyboard.
So I can get rid of this one.
Yep.
Is that
We
right?
know how hard you worked on all your stuff last year. Well done, mate.
Thank
We're
you.
very proud of you here at the at NRL.com.
If it wasn't for Sowie's support and Michael's support and everyone's support here at NRL.com, there's no chance I would have been recognised. It's a team award. Had a lot of fun bringing you all the stories of 2020.
You're almost the same colour as the
Ladies
mic.
and gentlemen, welcome. All right, thank you for that
Well done,
stitch up.
Zachary. Well done.
But moving forward, because it is my favourite segment of the week, and thank you for whoever wrecked a fine keyboard, I'm going to ask you guys to pick your champ and your chump of the week. So, Sowie, you'll be after round one, Chamis after round two. So you've got to get thinking. You've got to be out there.
Send some suggestions in.
Yeah, exactly.
Tag us in.
At NRL.com.
No. He's just trying to get out of doing his homework. None of this tag us in business.
I've got
Do
a
your
lot of work to do.
research.
I've
and
got a
come
lot of
back
work
with-
to do.
Yeah, no, it looks like you're doing well.
All right. Plenty more coming up on NRL.com. Not today. Tomorrow afternoon, though, we've got a special event. The Fox League team will give you a sneak peek into what is shaping up to be another big year with Fox League Season Showcase, the 90-minute special. Previews all the round one matches and some projects you'll see on Fox in 2021. You can see that on NRL.com and, of course, on Fox League and KO from 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. And before we take off into the 2021 Telstra Premiership. What better way to remember the 2020 campaign than with the 2020 official Rugby League Annual? It's the 34th edition in the series, put together by the game's leading historian, David Middleton. The 2020 Annual looks back in detail at the season like no other. It's on sale on March 5, so only a couple of days away. Pre-order your copy now at rugbyleagueannual.com.au. I've already been speaking to Middo and said, get me a copy. It's got everything you need.
Can you get me one too?
Sure. And
Although
then
Malcolm Middleton is the better Middleton.
I'll
Do you
bill
do
you.
anything yourself?
Just get me a copy, mate.
So you want everyone to do your homework and you want me to shout you a new
Yes, please.
annual. Okay. All right. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jamie. Looking forward to a season in the hot seat along you guys for Inside the NRL. Thank you most of all to everyone that's tuned in again for our opening show. We'll be back next Monday from 5. NRL Teams is back next Tuesday as well, so we'll have all the latest team updates there. But this week, of course, the last week for a long time with no Thursday night footy. But you're in for a treat this week as we look back at the Parramatta Eels Premiership in 1986, produced by Adam Halls. Here's a snippet of Eels 86.
Ladies and gentlemen, grand final time.
I know some people might say, how could he know he was going to win?
The Electric Eels of Parramatta, the one and only Ray Price.
I knew we were going to win because we were the better side.
You could take everything else off me as far as all the things I've done in rugby league, but I wouldn't like you taking the competitions off me.
This man is Rugby League Michael Cronin.
If you said, what's the one thing you're not going to take? I said, well, you're not going to take the premierships. And
Number 7, can I give you the Dally M half of the year, the player of the year, the master, Peter Sterling.
I think 86 to me really resonates because we'd won in 81, 82, 83. Got beat in the grand final in 84. Didn't make the grand final in 85. And I think there might have been a little bit of the consensus there that we were kind of on our way out. There might have been some doubters there.